Hello and welcome to this session about mapping. Well, what did we even call the session?
Wikimedia and the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes, so this is meant to be a really hands-on workshop, which means that we also want this to be a really interactive session. So be ready to engage. Please feel free to chat anywhere. We will be using as a basis the Etherpad that is linked from the program on Meta. And now I don't see our chat to, oh, there we are. So I'll put, you already did. Thank you, Daniel. And what we're trying to do here is today in this workshop is that we will try to take the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 different goals on various different topics, all from climate action to no hunger and poverty and life below water and life on land and such. And try to see how do they match what we're doing in the Wikimedia movement. And we'll do this in two passes. First, we're going to take a look at the Wiki in Dava, really getting into what we're doing right now to see what are the sessions talking about. And then secondly, we're going to take a wider look at the entire movement and all the activities that we do. And in our workshop today, it's going to be me, I'm Jan Einari, and we have Daniel Mitchen here as well as my co-speaker and co-founder of the Wikimedians for Sustainable Development. Do you want to introduce yourself anything more, Daniel?
Well, you said the most important things. I'm a biophysicist by training and mostly active at the interface between science and Wikimedia.
So I hope you have found, and I'm going to start sharing my screen now immediately here because we want to get started and working. So this is the Etherpad that is linked from in the chat now, and we hope you'll find your way into it. It'll start with just an abstract of this session, but I want to give you a brief summary of what we're trying to do and what expectations you can have. So we're in the sort of the introduction, and specifically we're on the precisely what is the plan for today. So first we're going to take a pass trying to look at the Wiki in Dava sessions. We have already started with something that Daniel and I thought was a reasonable assessment, but that's mostly to get you into what we're trying to do. Feel free to change the things that we have done or mark something that you think that this is not a really proper assessment, or add things to the document. And then we're going to do the same thing for the Wikimedia activities. And there we're also having sort of a head start because we made this session already in Wikimania this summer. So we have Wikimedians taking a pass on it, and now we want another perspective on it because we hope and think that there will be a little bit of different perspective when we're not talking about Wikimedians from all over the world, but specifying it from one continent. And there we also want to try to add some more. And then we'll try to discuss and see what kind of results we have and what we need to do. So if you scroll a little bit further down, there's going to be links here to the Google Docs, but I'll also paste this into this chat so you don't need to click twice. And if you don't, I hope I've given everyone access to edit this one already. And it looks like people are popping into the documents, so that's good. If you don't get access to it, please let me know and I'll try to fix that. And let's just first take a look. As you can see here, it's way too small for you to see. I know that. I'm actually just showing you to get you an overview of it. So you can see in the very left, here are all the sessions for this conference. And in the top, we have 17 columns with all the sustainable development goals. So now I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can actually see something. And each of these are also linked to the sessions. So if you don't understand what they mean from just the title, some ones are a little bit more cryptic, some ones are more funny. That's good with the titles for sessions. They should be enticing, but sometimes they're not very clear. And then we have the SDGs. And what we want to try to do with you today is make sure that if there is a connection between one of the session and one of the SDG goals, make an X in that. And we think you can be quite generous here. You don't need to be really like, oh, it doesn't exactly have this connection with a specific indicator or target. It could be more like, well, is this about health in general? Then we can put an X in the goal number 3, good health and well-being. And I think perhaps we could also, could be good to leave in the chat. If you want to review the goals, here's a quick link to the goals. They're on the globalgoals.org. I'll also put that in the session notes here. And I think that's sort of what we want to try to do. So, and since this is a workshop, we are going to participate as well, Daniel and I, and try to review what we did yesterday already and see if we can add something more. And should we just let people start working in silence here, Daniel?
I'm not sure, because I don't think many people have found their way into the Google Doc. So I see you and I see John, and so
I see two. I see an anonymous kangaroo and an anonymous blobfish.
Yeah, I see you and John, and so basically it's the 3 of us. So that means other people in the session haven't found their way into this Google Doc yet.
Yes. So anyone on the so it should be open to anyone at least. So hopefully that's possible.
Yeah, so we would encourage people who are on this call to go to the Google Doc link that Jan has shared, like, what was it, like 3 minutes ago?
Mm-hmm.
And then go into this document and help us go through that table. While this is not the case, maybe we can review this together.
Mm-hmm.
So you go from top to bottom, and we just discuss this like for each session, or you just pick some sessions maybe. Since you're sharing your screen, you can kind of drive this so that people get into the mood, how we do this.
So
and in the background, for those who are not in that document yet, maybe you can also think about activities that you are engaged in and how they relate to the Sustainable Development Goals, because we are going to capture that in the next part of the session.
Yes, so you can get mentally prepared for that coming up. I think you did the first one because that one was in French, and I don't speak French, so I didn't understand this title.
Yeah, so this basically means 20 years of Wikipedia, the perspective from Africa for the next 20 years on this encyclopedia. Right. And so this is essentially what we call Wikimedia internal. But of course, you could argue that it also touches upon partnerships for the goals. But I haven't assisted in that session, and I haven't really read the description in detail. So no, that was the wrong row.
Wrong row.
I have to go one up. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how the mapping came about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should actually freeze the column B, so that when you scroll to the right, we still see.
So let's see if I can freeze one column here. No, that's one.
Okay.
Control Z, freeze icons. There we go. So now we can scroll away here and still keep the title.
Yeah. Then at your country, that's your project.
That's my project, and I happen to know that we're actually specifically aiming at the SDG number 16. But when I was thinking a little bit here, because this is about having participation in democracy, really. But it's also a little bit about reducing inequalities in the way access to information. So I'll put 2 X's in here.
Yeah. Next one is affiliation committee. That's Wikimedia internal. So maybe we skip that. It doesn't have much to do with SDGs. If you disagree, you can always go in. African Wikimedia projects tracker. That's Wikimedia internal, but also maybe reduce inequality. It could be any of the others. If anyone knows that session better, we can add more detail.
Yeah, I put in the partnerships for the goals, because that's always good with when you have a tracker for the projects. It's easier to figure out new partnerships.
Yeah, okay.
And then African Wikimedians Volunteer Support Network. There, I thought that was mostly internal. Perhaps it's also partnerships. And then we have African languages. That could be cultural heritage. Maybe that's internal as well. I'll put an X over there. Amplifying knowledge gaps on Wikimedia projects by making them visible in artistic ways. I think here we both have the gender equality, because that's a large knowledge gap we have. I put quality in education as well. Reduce inequality.
Yeah, in a way, here they're talking about amplifying the knowledge gap. So we're maybe not reducing inequalities, but we're making them more visible. But I think that's fine, because the aim here is to address the inequalities.
Yeah. Then we have appreciating glam through showcasing Ghana's lighthouses. I think that could be infrastructure, which lighthouses is usually part of.
Yeah.
Partnerships and internal. That this might also be cultural heritage. Oh yes, it was. Building organized tools for the future of campaigns. It's internal. Partnerships. Building a Wikimedia community in African educational institutions. That's quality in education. Maybe even internal. All right. Gonna check our time and planning here, so we don't get. So we're around 15 minutes in. So maybe we should take a look at a little bit at our findings so far. Feel free to continue peer review what we have done. We think that one of the interesting part here is in the bottom when we add things up. So row 63, I'm gonna make that a nice little color here. That sums all the X's in the column, so we see how many there are of each. And then we try to make a percentage count depending on how many sessions there are in here. So we see where we have our focus. And now I think I'll actually zoom out a little bit so we can get a bit of an overview.
And maybe now you can actually change your screen such that we don't see the column B anymore, because we don't need it now.
Yeah, indeed. Through no columns. Then I can zoom a little bit more.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting here that we see we have a lot of course, in the quality in education. This is not very surprising. This is sort of what we do in the Wikimedia. It is interesting that we have quite a lot of things going on in reduced inequalities. Of course, a lot of partnerships in cultural heritage. These two lines underneath are the results from the Wikimania. And below we have put in red things that are really different. The first one is, of course, should perhaps not really be red, because that's an artifact that it's just one session and it's this session.
Yeah, both in Wikimania and here we marked this session as touching upon all of the SDGs.
Yeah.
And you see that for some of the goals, there is the number is just one. And that means it is only covered in this session.
Yeah.
And the same was true for Wikimania. And the difference between Wikindaba and Wikimania now is just the number of sessions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what Jan meant with the artifact. Okay, so Jan has already highlighted some of the SDGs for which there is a lot of activity. On the other hand, we can look at those for which there is less activity in terms of Wikindaba sessions. That's essentially all of those that have a 1 or 2 here. So it's no poverty, it's zero hunger, it's clean water and sanitation, it's affordable and clean energy, it is decent work and economic growth, it is responsible consumption and production, climate action. Yeah, and these are the 1s and 2s. So that is already a large group of things. And now we want you to think about what you're doing, especially for those, but also in general. What are the activities that you engage in as part of your Wikimedia activities? Then how these could be mapped.
Yeah.
And also what would be the activities that would really specifically address those things that don't get a lot of attention. And with that, maybe we can switch over to the next one.
Yes. So this one is also already linked from a bit further down in the document. I'll put it in the chat now. But you also have that down here. So this is a very similar setup on the document. We have activities in the column in the A column. And then we have the Sustainable Development Goals going from 1 to 17 here. What is different is that the rows here, instead of having sessions from Wikindaba, these are general Wikimedia activities, things that we do as Wikimedians over time, over the year, and perhaps as a one-off, perhaps as a recurring event. So we have things like Wiki Loves Monuments, or we also have on row 16 Wiki Loves Africa. We have editathons and other things. This is by no means a complete set of activities. And we haven't found any complete set of activities. So we wanted to build on this. So you're very free to, from the green row here, start adding more activities. And if you do have a link that explains the activity, you can put that just next to it. You don't have to do that, but it might make it easier for other people to understand. If it's something in general. A question here in the chat from Anthony. X means yes. So if you put an X there, there is a connection between the activity and the goal.
Yeah, we did not specify this in the document that X means yes.
Yeah.
So I'll do this. I'll add a note.
That's good. Thank you. And you are also free here to review what's already put in here. Some of the things have only been checked once. Some of the things have been checked by several people. We did this in Wikimania. We started collecting, and Daniel and I had a few activities that people were looking at and then reviewing. And then we had a session at Wikicon North America. And the 4 or 5 in the top are from that sessions that were added. So we changed them to be in the top. So here we want to collect even more. And we see we have one first already, Wikigap, coming in there. Perfect. And now we are actually a few more in this document, or one more at least.
Yeah, so we had planned this session as a working session, and when we did this at Wikimania, it was a very silent, roughly 10 minutes. And so we plan to keep it that way so that you can concentrate on reviewing the information that is there, adding new things to it. But if there's anything you want to discuss, then please use the chat, which we will try to monitor in between.
I noticed that we didn't have Wikimania in it, even though we started in Wikimania. So
yeah, well,
sometimes you're too close to
yeah,
see it.
what about Wiki and Dava? Do we have that in there?
Not yet. We do
no,
now.
We do. Okay.
Perfect. And I think we could also, even though it's good to have them, we can have like a row for regional conferences.
Yes, and in doing so, we can also start thinking about how to categorize those things. Because at some point we want to zoom out even further and then think about, okay, what kinds of activities do we have, and how do they map to the SDGs, or how can we parameterize them to map to certain SDGs or to all of them?
I'll go ahead and make a counter on the row as well, because that gives us an easy overview to see if someone has if you have forgotten to review a row or not.
Okay.
If I remember how I counted. Right, very nice. A few more. Activities coming in here. One with all the rows. Right. Do we want to move into the next part, discussing and see what gaps we have?
Yeah, maybe. We can always continue this later.
Yeah.
But I think we have made some progress.
Yes. So now I'm gonna. You can keep adding if you want to. That's we still have 15 rows here, and we can add more if needed.
Yeah, and also we can look at the columns B and C. That might also be useful.
Yeah. I think that they have been broken, the C column, unfortunately. Anyway, in the bottom we have a summary which comes up, and here we can see. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to give an overview, so we can see which ones are standing out. And we can see, of course, as again as before, quality education is in the lead with 26. We have.
Can you resume? Maybe get rid of ABC for this.
Yeah, I
time,
can do that. Freeze, no columns, and zoom in again to 50, perhaps. There we go. I can't see everyone, but we can at least read, I hope. Yeah. So we have this column 26 in the lead. Not surprising. I think it's encouraging to see that the reduced inequalities sees quite a lot of attention. And I think we have, for partnerships in general, we also see a lot of things going on. These are things that we are already good at, where we have ideas on things that we can do. But I think more important now is to look at which are the ones that we don't really see, that we have activities that we know how to address these. So let's see which one comes in at the lowest ones. We have 1, 2, and 2 as the lowest. So really far down is clean water and sanitation. And then we have no poverty and affordable and clean energy coming in just above that. And I think we had 2 more here with really low. We have life below water and life on land on just a few activities.
Yeah, so this means we could now take these as parameters for organizing events or things or maybe wiki projects or something like this to address these things, and then reaching out to people who might be interested in that. So maybe we can use this clean water and sanitation thing. So this is something that essentially exists in every community. As long as people are living somewhere on a regular basis, they will need to deal with that in some way.
Yes.
And so it is actually a topic that could be handled in a very global fashion. On the other hand, it could also be handled in a very local fashion, in the sense that any group, any local group could reach out to their local, let's say, clean water or sanitation facilities, and then, or maybe some other groups engaged with that, and then just check out relevant articles, maybe on sanitation, on how drinking water is being processed, and what the regulations are, or toxicological aspects, or even like which animals live in clean water versus those that don't live there, and things like that. There's lots of possibilities actually. And so yeah, maybe we should just, I'll just add one new row here, like an editathon around water quality. Let's call it that way.
Do we want to go like we did in Wikimania into a real brainstorming mode in the Etherpad?
Yeah, maybe. But we should maybe pick the 5 or 10 topics that receive, or SDGs that receive the lowest amount of attention.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, go back to the Etherpad in brainstorm mode.
So,
And yeah, so
see if I can, what happens if I copy these into here?
well,
Sort
not
of
too
worked.
bad. Yeah, okay, so for everyone joining here, sorry, we're hopping between the different platforms. So in one way, you're on AirMeet. We also have the Etherpad. We went to the Google Docs in between, 2 of them, and now we're going back to the Etherpad.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe we can just hop into these lines, currently line 52 to 60, and just start writing things down there, what we could be doing.
Yeah. And here there's nothing right, nothing wrong. You write as much or little as you want. The more you write, the easier it is for someone else to understand it. But any idea that pops into your head, just put it down here. You don't even need to think much deeper on it, but just go ahead and add ideas. Yes, and John put a very good question in the Q&A here. Also, I think one thing that would be really helpful is to find existing places with lists of activities. For example, the Wikimedia blog, the Wikimedia chapter annual reports, etc. Where else might we find lists? That's an excellent question.
We can also invert this, where suppose we have a list, which we do right now. What is the good, or what is the best place, or what are the best places to like advertise this list? where's the best place to have it sit, and maybe where the best place is to have pointers to it.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to have too many copies.
No.
Maybe we should actually host it on Wikidata and then provide a mechanism to edit it in a collaborative fashion via Listeria or something like this.
Possibly. There's also in the movement strategy a recommendation about knowledge sharing, and one of the initiatives is to create a knowledge base for this. So connecting it with that would be good, because there's people thinking about these kinds of things. I don't know if anyone started to build a separate database. I don't know that. But we should make sure we reach out to them.
Actually, in one of the breaks, I went to the Wikibase booth, because this Wiki Indaba has an exhibition space, and there is a Wikibase booth, but there was nobody. I couldn't find anyone. But that's the kind of thing we could be discussing. Yeah, there is WB Stack, there is Wikibase Cloud coming up.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people who have been playing with Wikibase on a regular basis. There are a few dozen Wikibase instances already running as real projects. There are a few hundred Wikibase instances that are test instances of various kinds. I have maybe 5 of them myself. In many ways, having a Wikibase instance for these kind of coordination activities would really facilitate lots of things. The problem is then still people need to be made aware that this thing exists using more traditional channels. But that if we had a Wikibase, then we could run queries like, give me all the events that ever took place that had a relationship to disasters, for instance. Right?
Yep.
Right now, this is almost impossible to find. But if we were to annotate individual Wikimedia activities just the way we did, we could actually set up such a Wikibase. And maybe we can even try this before the Wiki Convention, and then test drive it in French next time.
Yeah, and that could also be even useful outside SDGs also, because you could have something like query for all the activities that you can do as one person.
Yes.
Or things that you need to have a group and stuff like that.
Yeah, or things that have ever been done at a university or something like this, right?
Yes. Very nice. We get a notification here that we have 10 minutes left. I'm going to scroll up and see our schedule here, what we still have. We have a lot of good ideas here coming in. And I think we can continue with this a little bit, brainstorming, but also feel free to ask questions either in the Q&A or the chat, or put more things into the Etherpad. And then we'll go into more of the wrapping up.
Yeah, so I'm just reading through some of the things that others have written here. So, for instance, No Poverty, identify organizations of photo collections working in this area and approach them to open license their content. So, in other contexts, like Wiki Loves Africa or Wiki Loves Monuments, and so we typically use the phrase Wiki Loves something, which has its, let's say, established meanings and also some, let's say, misunderstandings. But Wiki Loves Poverty probably wouldn't work. So maybe we need a different framing here. And I'm just
Wiki loves
raising
money
this.
wouldn't work either.
Yeah. So here we need like Wiki addresses poverty or something like this. Something more active would be more useful. But off the top of my head, I don't really have a good, let's say, slogan that would work quickly. And maybe we don't even need to do it in English. Maybe the best way to start this is in some local context, and then take inspiration from there. Maybe it works better in other languages. I don't know. I just wanted to raise this because the general idea of Wiki loves something has been successful in a number of contexts, but for poverty, we haven't really found it. Another thing we could look at in our Google Doc is things that have lots of crosses, like activities that have lots of crosses. So one that I notice is WikiCite, basically, because a WikiCite focused event or activity could be focused on any topic, as long as there are citations involved, which essentially exist in every topic covered by SDGs. We could have a WikiCite related activity around that. And we can check whether we have other activities that have lots of crosses, like here, for instance, number 6. What's this? Add a reference to a page about poverty. Okay, yeah, that's essentially a similar thing. Then here is another one, 6. Talk to a botanical garden about a partnership. Okay. This apparently addresses a number of SDGs as well.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe we could also have some sort of stats where we order the activities by number of crosses they have.
Yeah, I think that might be something that we should do after this. So we
Yeah, we
do
can't
have
do it
only
now.
5 minutes left here, so we should try to finish this and think a little bit about the future.
Yes.
So obviously, if you are interested, Daniel and I are active in the user group Wikimedians for Sustainable Development. You're very welcome to join us in that. It's it's sort of a bit of a meta user group in that sense that we try to coordinate all of these kinds of activities that are going on. They might be happening in a chapter or somewhere else, but we'll still like to know, like, well, how can we get a chapter working on water in one country collaborate with a user group somewhere else, because there might be similarities. So that's the reason why we exist.
Yeah, and with things that we've learned from sessions like today, we can then really think about, okay, which groups exist in the Wikimedia ecosystem. And these might be formal groups like chapters or user groups, or it might be just a wiki project or people who visit a particular talk page. And then how we can address any of those issues. So I could also imagine a wiki source collection on water related regulations, for instance. They might have a collection of legal documents that govern water quality or something like this. All of this is possible. We just need someone to organize it. But especially if you're in a position to organize some events where the topic doesn't matter too much, we would like to encourage you to pick some of those topics that are not normally handled. And here, our table gives you a good number of starting points.
Yeah, and we hope also that this can serve as a little bit of a inspiration if you're happening to get a good contact with an organization that are particularly interested in one of the sustainable development goals perhaps they are very passionate about goal 16 and you don't really know what could we do, then you can go to this list and get some inspiration of other things that we have done before in the movement. And hopefully if there's a link, you can also find exactly like what were they doing, who did it, can I get in contact with someone to get some help as well.
Yeah, 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
If anyone on this meeting, I see we have 10 people in the session. There's some people who haven't said anything, or that I'm not aware that they have written anything or posed a question or so. Now you have some more minutes, and we would encourage you to kind of raise your voice or write something just to share some of the thoughts that you have around this topic.
I'll see if I can make a little quick poll here as well. Let's see. All right, so now there's also a little bit poll here. And I show the poll on stage. All right, let's see how that works. So if you found this session useful, you can vote yes or no, or you didn't really get it, which is sort of a no, but it's another kind of feedback to us that we didn't explain it well enough. So please switch in the conversations tab to the polls thing and press some buttons there, and we'll have some feedback, because we're also going to do this again at, what was the name of the French conference?
Wiki Convention francophone.
Yes, there. And try to refine this even further. And as Google Docs is not really accessible, and Etherpads are fleeting in their nature, we will try to move these things to Meta, some pages. We did this after Wikimania. It's some work, and unfortunately it sort of also freezes them because it's hard to work with big tables on Meta, but at least it will be saved for eternity. And now I think we have like 10 or 20 seconds and we will be. So yeah, thank you everybody who